Preston is a staff writer covering LSU football. Give him a follow on X at PGuy77. Preston, how's it going, man? Can you hear me?
Hear me, guys?
Yes, sir. We got you, man. We appreciate you joining us. Big game this week, Florida and LSU. And obviously LSU, Preston, they just had a massive game a couple weeks ago against Clemson. And the big takeaway was how great that defense was in that Clemson game. Preston, you watch every LSU game. You know how much the defense has struggled the last couple years. What was your biggest takeaway from that side of the ball in the Clemson game? What did the defense do really well that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like a return to LSU football, as y'all remember, the early 2000s and really into the early 2010s as well. The LSU defense is really what carried LSU football in through its golden era of success. And, it always seemed like, man, if LSU could just find a quarterback, how good would they be? Well, we've had now, two Heisman winners here. And now it's like, man, if LSU could just find a defense, how good would they be? So it seems like they definitely have the pieces in place now. And that defense is suffocating. I mean, they shut Clemson out in the second half, and then they opened up against La Tech with a shutout in the first half there. Of course, they gave up what was effectively a garbage time touchdown, up 20-0 late in the fourth quarter against Louisiana Tech there. But I mean, it is just as good as billed. It is suffocating. These guys look like the real deal, and it looks like they might need to, because that offense, while very talented, is having some trouble putting things together. Just seems like they can't get all the pieces lined up right now on that side of the ball.
You know what, Preston? I think last week what was interesting is LSU has that great win in week one, and we come away from it, and we're like, man, LSU's good enough to win the national title. They go in, they beat one of the best teams in the country in their house. And then we're watching week two last week, and we're all seeing Clemson struggle with Troy at home. They were down 16-0 in that game. So naturally, we go into this week in week three, and we're wondering how much of that game was just LSU being awesome. Is Clemson not as great as we think they are? So what were your takeaways kind of from that Clemson-Troy game? Did you come away from maybe looking at that LSU-Clemson game like LSU is still really good, but maybe Clemson's just not as great as we thought they were, and interested to see what they do against Florida now?
Well, if you're just looking at that objectively and okay, LSU, Clemson played one football game against each other. Now we're going to try to move forward from that and determine how good are these football teams. And their first test outside of that is a struggle win versus lesser G6 opponents. That's not good. That's a stock down week. It just is. However, I'll say this. I mean, they both won. They both, took care of business in the second half. I mean, Clemson went down 16-0, and then they ripped off 27 straight. LSU effectively was in control of that game against La Tech and missed on a lot of opportunities here and there. But it's just I look at it as more of an emotional letdown. I mean, you're talking about a massive top 5 matchup on the road, and then you have to come back home and play a G5 or G6 opponent who doesn't quite excite your players and coaches quite all the same. So I'm not going to overreact to it, but there's certainly some flags being raised there. It definitely was a stock down week.
Nussmeier's the favorite right now, Preston, to win the Heisman Trophy. You've obviously seen Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels here in recent years win the Heisman. You think Nussmeier's good enough to do it? You think that supporting cast around him, if they have the season that a lot of us maybe think they might go to the playoff, do you think that he is the rightful favorite right now to win the Heisman?
Yeah, I think he's certainly good enough to do it. I don't know if he actually ends up going through and doing it. Particularly, there's some tough defenses he's going to have to play down the road here. So we'll just have to see if he's able to perform. He certainly was able to perform for the most part last year, although there were some performances like Texas A&M. You can't go out there and throw 3 interceptions. But if he can cut back on the interceptions and improve upon – he played badly against Louisiana Tech this weekend. I mean, I tallied up his misreads. I mean, he had – 6 misreads, and he had 5 inaccurate throws, and 2 times he held onto the ball too long. So that's a total of 13 errors he made against a G6 team. He has to improve upon that. He cannot be having wide open receivers that he underthrows by 10 yards. He's got to iron that out. I think he will, because for the most part last year, he did iron that out. He had a few moments here or there where it wasn't great, but we're talking about a 4,000-yard passer for a reason, a guy who's passed for 6,000 yards in his career. I think he gets that out. He's certainly good enough, and if LSU holds on and and has a special season like they're certainly capable of with that defense, he might not need to do what Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow did to win the Heisman. I would say that an undefeated season and 35 touchdowns might do the trick for Garrett Nussmeier.
We're talking LSU football here with Preston Guy. Give him a follow on X at PGuy77. Preston, let's get into the big one on Saturday against the Florida Gators. What are the keys to the game for you in that matchup?
Man, LSU has to play disciplined on offense. I mean, there's just so many times where just something goes wrong. You got to catch the ball. Your quarterback has to throw the ball accurately. Receivers are getting open and just things are going awry somehow, some way. You have to execute, particularly when it matters. LSU has had a history under Joe Sloan the last couple of years of getting into the red zone and not being able to get points on the board. Something goes wrong. So they have to execute, and especially when it matters. Florida is going to be a team in absolute desperation mode. Billy Napier will be coaching for his job. We're talking about a coach who's 500 after 4 seasons in his 4th season at Florida. That's not boding well over there. He's going to pull out everything he can. He's going to fire his guys up as much as possible to win this football game because he knows if he doesn't win it, he's in trouble. And it certainly doesn't get any easier from here with Miami, Texas A&M, Georgia, Mississippi State. I mean, he has an absolute gauntlet coming his way, and the gauntlet starts today. Although the losing started last week, the gauntlet is what starts today.
Yeah, it certainly is. Preston, I also want to get your thoughts on the total, which is sitting at 48.5, because last year was a low-scoring game between these two, but the prior 5-6 years have been total shootouts, as you know. Do you think we get back to a high-scoring affair, especially with the 2 quarterbacks that we have in this game, or with 2 good defenses, do you think, once again, it's a lower-scoring matchup?
No, I don't see 48.5 happening. I would take the under there. I mean, I'm not a professional bettor by any stretch of the imagination, but I do know this defense is certainly good enough to hold Florida to 10 points because they did it to Clemson. I ultimately believe Clemson still will have a better offense than Florida this year, and LSU was utterly dominant against Clemson, particularly in the second half, and I think this defense is the real deal. So that being said, to go out and say, if you think LSU can hold Florida roughly in the ballpark of 10 to 15 points, to go out there and ask LSU to score in the mid 30s, that's a lot of points to lay. That's a lot of points to put up against an SEC team like Florida, particularly the way LSU's offense is moving, where there's still clunkiness going on. I'm going under 48.5 if you make me pick.
Preston, before we let you go, man, what's your prediction for Saturday in Baton Rouge? Who wins the game?
I think LSU wins and covers. I think Florida is a team in desperation, but ultimately there's a reason why they're in this desperate spot. And I think 7.5 is a bigger number than it sounds, because essentially you're saying more than one score is what they're going to win by. 7 points is 1 touchdown, but that means they're going to go more than that, which means, basically to beat that, going by football scores, you have to win by about 10 or so. And I think LSU can do that. I think LSU should win by 2 scores in this game. I think that defense is the real deal. And I think this offense, while they're not necessarily hitting on all cylinders right now, there's certainly some synchronization errors going on. I definitely think they're loaded with talent. The offensive line is problematic, but at the skill positions in Nussmeier, they're definitely talented enough. I think LSU cruises by 2 scores.
There you go. Preston Guy, give him a follow on X at PGuy77. Staff writer covering LSU football. Join us here on Send It In. Preston, appreciate the time, man. Enjoy the game on Saturday. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a nice day.